Morning, everybody. Hope you had a pretty awesome Thanksgiving. This comes out on Monday, which I think is Cyber Monday, so it's going to be madness if you didn't get enough on Black Friday. Talking about that, let's get into who makes this episode possible. Everybody knows the answer to that question. It's Black Rifle Coffee. Let's head to the website. It looks like they still have a Black Friday sale going on right now because this is being recorded on Sunday, the day before the episode comes out. So 30% off site-wide. I bet you that is going to last for Monday as well. Let's see what we got here. 70% off select items. The ID.me customers, those are for military members or people who can verify a government ID. Apparel, gear, coffee bundle samplers, all of these things. From now until the end of the year, it's going to be me talking to you about gifts for people in your life who either like Black Rifle Coffee or like the brand. Maybe they like coffee and they don't even know about the brand. I am going to recommend, let's just start here, a bundle or a sampler. Let's go to the sampler. $22.99. 4 bags of coffee. It looks like they're a little bit smaller than the 12-ounce bag, but you're exposing them to the brand. What do we got here? Beyond Black, Just Black, AK, and Silence to Smooth. Those are great roasts. I have all of those for sale at the coffee shop. And let's just say maybe you want to get them something that they can make their coffee in. We're in the equipment section right here, and I mean, you could just go to town. So think about Christmas now because this is December 1st as I'm recording this. I don't even know how this works. I mean, I know how the calendar works, but at the same time, it's a wild thing to me that we're into December. And that's it. Best thing people can do to support the podcast is support the brand that helps brings me here to the studio. I actually brought myself, but it allows me to bring the episodes to everybody. Yeah, they provide me the economic ability to make this podcast, to provide it to people for free. So best way you can support me is to support them. My guest for today is Dan Bruner. He and I connected over email, but it was over originally the topic of Tren de Aragua, which is a Venezuelan gang that I did an episode of Change Agents about, working with Ironclad, the company that I work with to produce Change Agents. Dan, 20 years in the FBI. Anti-cartel operations largely out of the New Jersey area. Very steeped in knowledge and experience, not only in TDA, but other cartel-associated gangs, individuals, how they're put together, their network, how they're coming into the country, how they are structuring what they do inside of the country that ties back to their home of origin. Pretty wild. And there was this article that came out, and it was either 13 or 16 states that TDA, or Tren de Aragua, is active in. Montana, my home state, is one of them. And Dan lives in Bozeman, and he bases his business out of Bozeman. I think that's probably the epicenter for the TDA in Montana. And it is directly in front of people, and they're probably not even seeing it. So why would I not host a former FBI agent? Well, between the last 2 Mondays, we have 45, 50 years of experience at the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Very different trajectories, obviously. Chris Paiota, last week's guest, went a different direction. Dan specifically focusing on the Jersey area, organized crime, cartel, and let's just get into it. Episode number 363 with Dan Bruner. Enjoy.
Okay, got the red smoke.
Gun run, north or south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke.
Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. Get cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
I don't know. We did like a 2.5-hour episode yesterday, and afterwards he's like, hey, just the videos were turning on and off. Like, dude, tell me during. It's not like this is live. We could have fixed it, even though my tech skills are horrible. Dan, where do we begin? How about I just saw I'm just going to call it a tweet because I feel like saying an X is dumb.
I was listening to one of the other podcasts where he was like, what is it called now that it's on X? Is it a tweet? Is it a
tweet sketcher?
Tweet sketcher. And everybody knows that. Everybody still knows that.
Is he a congressman or senator-elect?
He is senator-elect.
Okay, and he tweeted about the Tren de Aragua. Yeah. What was it, 13 or 16 states that they are in?
Now 16 confirmed.
Yeah.
I think that number's a lot bigger.
It wouldn't surprise me. And our lovely state of Montana happened to be on the northern edge. I think they had highlighted them in orange. I saw you hopped on there.
Yep.
Saying, hey, I know a thing or two, so maybe reach out. So that's current as of yesterday. What the hell is Tren de Aragua? Are you pissing in a bottle over there, Michael?
It's this pipe behind me.
Okay.
But also, yes,
I'm going to be
pissing in a
honest. I
bottle.
wouldn't have been upset with you if you are because of the dedication to your job. But I heard what sounded like pissing into a Gatorade bottle.
That's
and I,
what it
and I
sounds
didn't
like.
want to look, but also I had no choice.
But here's the trick: this is what you get. Here's the trick. We used to do this when I do surveillance. You keep a detergent bottle, a laundry detergent bottle,
Yeah.
with a little bit of soap at the bottom and a big wide top.
Interesting.
The Gatorade bottle is traditionally, but the trick is you don't want the smell in your car, so you keep a Tide bottle.
Yeah.
That was almost empty. You use that. Not to mention you could probably use that 2 or 3 times before you have to empty it.
That makes sense. The number one rule, too, is always use bottles that have a different circumference opening.
Yep.
Because being confused on that, I have never drank my own piss, but I have been in the room when other people accidentally
You're not going to accidentally drink from a Tide bottle.
You're not.
No.
So write that down, Michael. 2 different size bottles. All right. So Tren de Aragua.
So
Break this down.
So Tren de Aragua is a Venezuelan, and everybody calls it a gang, but I'm not calling it a gang. It's a transnational criminal organization.
Okay.
And here's why: is they're not just a street gang. They're not just kids on the street and just operating a little bit of theft here and there. They are an organization based out of Venezuela with the support of the Maduro government, and that they're committing crimes all throughout South America and now moving into the United States.
What do they specialize in crimes-wise?
Well, a lot of what they do is what you would call, what MS-13 had been doing for years, but they've just elevated it to the next level. They're working human trafficking, obviously smuggling, bringing young girls up here. They're bringing Venezuelans, legitimate Venezuelans that want to live and have a good life up here. They're trafficking them up here. They're having those people move narcotics, weapons through the border into the United States, and those young girls are being pushed to Venezuelan strongholds where there's Venezuelan communities, such as Bozeman, such as other areas of Montana.
Was that also the gang associated with the Colorado apartment complex?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and here's the thing that a lot of people in the United States don't understand is everybody's like, they took over an apartment building, and that we can go into like half an hour of how fucked up that situation Aurora was, and how the government of Aurora, Colorado tried to, nothing to see here, nothing to see, like in The Naked Gun where the fire's burning, nothing to see, when actually, yeah, there was.
Yeah, there was actually a lot of ring cam footage to see.
Right.
That was pretty terrifying.
Oh, absolutely. But here's the thing this is not a new thing for Tren de Aragua. They were doing this in Chile years ago. Taking over apartment buildings. There are apartment buildings, entire floors of buildings that were taken over by members of TDA. And they were extorting, they were conducting homicides, they were drug trafficking. And then when those individuals of TDA are discovered, or they were being indicted by the Chilean law enforcement PDI, when PDI moved in and charged them, TDA then picked those members up and moved them. And they would end up here in the United States. So now you have experienced gang members moving into these Venezuelan communities, which are large amount. And one of the numbers I like to say is 10% rule. For me, it's the 10% rule. You got 15 million, 10% of them are people with nefarious acts.
I feel like that's fair.
Right. And so you've got 90%. You have a huge Venezuelan communities here in the United States. And you put one member of TDA inside this organization or these communities, and then you're going to be finding, not to mention 12, 13, 14-year-old kids who aren't doing anything. They're not employable on the streets. And not to mention these members are using the same tactics that El Salvador, that MS-13 did. Find a family member, figure out what families they have back in Venezuela, and say, you're going to give me 10% of your take-home pay. Or else someone in Venezuela will get a visit from our TDA members. And those Venezuelans here who are working legitimately, they don't have a choice. They're illegal. You're in this country illegally, so they're not going to go to law enforcement. They don't trust law enforcement, so they'd rather just pay. So that goes on constantly. So you got sex trafficking, weapons trafficking, drug trafficking, extortion, prostitution, and they're all taking notes from the Chilean organized crime and what one of the the suspicion is the recent break-ins to the homes of Mahomes and Travis Kelce. The individuals that were breaking into that homes were heard speaking Spanish. So they were overheard speaking Spanish. They were in and out in 5 minutes. So they knew where they were going. And this was a coordinated attack. So one of the considerations, what they're thinking about is this was the South American theft group, which has been working, here in the United States for years. It's a Chilean organized crime that sends tourists, Chilean individuals, to the United States, commit the thefts, and then bring the proceeds back to Chile. Well, now they're saying that the Venezuelans have been taking that and making it their own, doing what they've learned. So we all know Travis Mahomes has got video, and ESPN's follow them through their home, and that's the intelligence these people need. They know, okay.
Yeah, they're doing the recce for them.
Right. That's the room that we know. And that's why I tell all my clients, I'm saying, listen, get your homes off the internet.
And also, don't let news crews fucking walk through.
Don't let news crews.
This is where I keep my diamonds, and here's my non-serialized firearms. And my
that's exactly what they're doing, right? That's exactly what they're doing. They're just saying, here's a silver platter. Here's my home. Oof. Oh, by the way, I won't be home on this date because I'm going to be in Seattle.
Yeah, my travel schedule is available for the internet to look at.
So they were in, they were out in 5 minutes because they knew what they were doing, and they were overheard speaking Spanish. So there's been a lot of discussion of whether they're South American theft group or this is the TDA work. So TDA has artificially spread through this country in the last year and a half, 2 years. I worked Hispanic gang crime for 15 years with the FBI in New Jersey. I know MS-13. I know Trinitarios. I know TDA. In March of last year, in 23, I went to a conference. I was still with the Bureau. I went to a conference where a lot of South American countries were there. And we were there to talk about a new gang called Tren de Aragua. And their spread as they moved through South America, and they were barely in the United States. Texas, Florida, a little bit of presence. But they hadn't spread. And there's only one thing that I could say that to show the reason why they spread so rapidly was the immigration at the border. And that's the only reason. I mean, nothing spreads that fast artificially. This was, they let in millions of people across the border.
Yeah.
And this is the result. Well, now it's too late. They're here. Now we have to deal with it. We have to attack them head on. So, yeah, I've heard that they were in Montana probably like 7 or 8 months ago, but I wasn't comfortable in putting it out there.
Why Bozeman, of all places? I mean, it's probably
construction.
Okay.
There's a huge Hispanic community. Mexicans, Hondurans, and Venezuelans are the three.
As far as the manual label for the construction that's going up there?
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
a lot of construction in Big Sky.
Yeah.
A lot of construction at the Yellowstone Club.
We were literally watching a YouTube video about the housing disparity in Montana minutes before I came and picked you up. They were talking about those two specific areas.
Yeah. No. The number of construction, sites that are all going up, and they're still going up, and it's baffling us. It's just like how they're building so much. And they're creating so much infrastructure that these general contractors are bringing in everybody. They're bringing in anything. And that's the thing that scares me is that they're hiring anybody, okay? And especially with situations like the Yellowstone Club up in Big Sky, you're dealing with high money, you're dealing with actors, sports athletes and stuff like that. And the people who are building the houses are just saying, hey, general contractor, I need you to build this house. Okay. General contractor turns around and says, I need 15 guys to work with me. They're trusting the general contractor to make the right decision. That general contractor doesn't care about what backgrounds they are, whether they're MS-13, TDA, or other organized crime gang units. So you've got quite a bit of criminal activity. Again, 10% rule. 10%. A vast majority of these of migrants. Like I said, my parents were immigrants to this country. My mom's from Chile. My dad's from Argentina. Vast amount of people are good people looking to earn a better opportunity here in this country. But the 10% rule of 15 million, that's a shitload of people.
So if they're allowed to get their hooks in up here, let's just use Bozeman as a hypothetical, what does that look like? Targeted approaches, targeted theft? Like the things that you talked about, are they going to try to burrow into an apartment complex in the Bozeman area, same extortion? What would you estimate that it would look like, or hypothesize? I
think that my theory would be that it's going to be very similar to the environment. So obviously Bozeman has a very small footprint, population 70,000, 80,000, something like that. So to dominate a apartment complex within the Bozeman area, is probably going to get a lot of attention.
More so than Aurora, which has got to have a larger population.
Huge community, huge Hispanic community, people that need to remain silent. So I don't believe that we're going to see the apartment. I think we're going to see a lot more subverted, covert, quiet type of criminal activity. Having a house of prostitution of young girls within the Hispanic community. The Hispanic workers come back, they take advantage of that, and they work it. Obviously, there's a lot of narcotics on the reservation. We know that. We know that the CJNG and Sinaloa are in the area.
Which is wild they chose those as their base of operations. But then if you look at it from a 30,000-foot view, pretty fucking smart.
But here's the other thing is, intelligence that I've gotten is that those are the two cartels that TDA works with, is CJNG and Sinaloa. So the fact that they are here and that CJNG and Sinaloa also have this territory doesn't surprise me. So, I sent you that photograph. I'm not gonna say why why I identified that, but you can see
it
these.
It was in
plain view.
I mean, it almost I'm not going to say what it said either,
right.
But because it just said what it said.
Right. Right. But somebody, like I said, of our worlds, we're able to see that and go, oh. And when I showed that photograph to other people who aren't familiar with this world,
that's going to go right over.
They're like, oh no, that's what that means. No, that's not what it means. That's our identifiers.
So where you and I are sitting right now, I think we're 54 miles from the Canadian border. How, for the TDA in Venezuela, and also I kind of want to work the way back on how loosely or tightly connected they would be to the controlling aspects of it in Venezuela. Like, who is at the top of the TDA? Is it a group of people? Are we talking one dude sitting on top of a heap of cocaine and money? Because that's how I imagine it.
Well, it depends on where you look at the hierarchy and the command structure. So the Colombian authorities just arrested the number 2 man, which is supposedly on the totem pole. He was in Colombia, in Santander, Colombia. So the Venezuelan, TDA doesn't necessarily sit in Venezuela. You've got leadership that are everywhere. And the exact structure, it depends on who you talk to. Insight.com is an excellent resource. I know you've had Sean on here. I talk to him regularly. It's, like I said, really it depends on which way the wind blows. But I know that they're very tight with the President Maduro and his organization, his government there, to the point where I've understood is that he's given them a number of gold mines that for them to mine. He just says, here, take this gold mine. And that's, it's happening in Colombia too and other countries. So it's not just Venezuela, not against TDA, but other criminal organizations are literally taking over gold mines that are in the hills. So supposedly TDA has a couple gold mines that he said, you mine it, you sell it, it's yours. So TDA takes that gold, moves it to the United States and Europe, sells it, and then returns that profit and proceeds into the organization. So it's literally a circle that they're taking gold from Venezuela under Maduro's approval. But then in turn, they have to do Maduro's bidding. So in Chile, about a year ago, there was a lieutenant from the Venezuelan army, and he had fled to Chile to hide out. He was a staunch opposition to Maduro. He was a lieutenant in the army, and obviously he would be persona non grata in Venezuela. So he fled to Chile. TDA found him in Chile, captured him, kidnapped, tortured, and then murdered him, obviously in very plain sight. Mm-hmm. Those individuals, I think they're still on the run. A couple have been taken into custody in other countries. But the fact is TDA did this. So it's not that, he did anything wrong to the TDA. TDA, was doing the bidding of Maduro. Is there anything clear to lock that in? Of course not, because we're not going to get into Venezuela. Yeah. But where there's smoke, there's fire. I mean, it's there. So you've got now, I would guess somewhere between 3,000 to 5,000 members of TDA, I think, here in the United States. I think that's a relatively good number.
And when was the conference you went to where they were just getting a footprint?
That was in South America, in Ecuador. When I went, that was in March of last year.
Fuck.
Yeah. That was in March of last year. That's just 1 year. Okay. And now we got 3,000 to 5,000 members. But that doesn't include, you got all the kids in New York City. All these 13, 14, 15-year-olds who are in the Roosevelt Hotel getting recruited because they're not doing anything. So what are they going to do? Especially with, the arrest procedures at NYPD and, the DA there not charging the kids with anything. So
You should unpack the Roosevelt Hotel. That didn't hit my radar until relatively recently. I don't think most people even know what you're talking about when you say that.
So the Roosevelt Hotel is used to be a very, very nice hotel in New York City. I lived in New York City for 3 years. So I was FBI in Newark, New Jersey for 20 years, but I lived in the city for 3 years with my then girlfriend, now wife, Christine. So we lived in Upper East Side, so we got to see this firsthand. The Roosevelt Hotel is a beautiful building that got turned over by the administration of New York City and turned it into a migrant hotel for migrants coming to the United States when they got shipped from the border straight to New York City. And then they needed to put them somewhere. So New York City said, here's the keys to the hotel. And that entire hotel has turned into a migrant stronghold. You literally have videos on YouTube. You can look at it. You can't get in there unless you're one of the migrants. You can't get in if you're a reporter. They don't support it. I just saw a video yesterday of a kid who does these type of interviews, and he confronted looked like maybe somewhere around 13 or 14 years old coming out, speaks to him in Spanish, and he says, hey, are you, and he starts flipping gang signs and everything like that. And he asks him about, the 42nd Street member of TDA. So there's supposedly I don't remember exactly what it's called, el hombre o el niño de 42, the kid of 42nd Street, and who is supposedly TDA, and they go out and do crimes in Times Square. They do robberies, pickpocket, jewelry theft, any type of crime, but they're not getting charged by NYPD. They may get a ticket or a citation, and then they're released, and they're back at their hotel that night.
Are you able to find any good stuff about the Roosevelt Hotel, Michael? Any images or videos?
Oh yeah, a lot of videos here.
Let's see what you got. It blows my mind that this is not openly talked about more. I'd like to think that it's not suppressed, or maybe there's so much going on in the world that it just doesn't hit the top of the news cycle.
I think it's become such like the norm. It's kind of like, it's the Roosevelt Hotel, it is what it is. Yeah, there you go. I mean, this was 5 months ago.
Hit play on that shit, Michael.
Yeah.
It's been dubbed by the city as a new Ellis Island. The Roosevelt Hotel was turned into a migrant arrival center in May 2023 and became the one-stop shop where newly arriving migrants could get information 24/7 about what to do and where to go next. Since its arrival center opened its doors around a year ago, it has welcomed more than 150,000 migrants from 160 different countries.
Holy shit.
Warm meals at the cost of the taxpayer. So let's just make sure we remember that.
Since its inception, he says once migrants arrive, they are quickly registered.
We ask for your name, the size of your family, give you a wristband, so that we know and have line of sight into everybody in the building now.
Come on.
Migrants are led to a room that is set up as a healthcare clinic. Every migrant is screened for any disease they might have contracted along the way, offered medical assistance, screened for depression, and are able to get vaccinated. City officials say that so far they have administered more than 70,000 vaccines.
Enable us to enroll kids in school almost instantly upon when they arrive in New York City.
After this, migrants are connected to a case manager who will help them decide next steps. If they want to connect with family or friends in a different state, the city will help them get there. If they need a shelter bed, the city will then assign them to a shelter site and help them get started on...
Are they staying in the hotel itself as well?
That's where they sleep and stay. Yeah,
Because all of this is just like the first floor,
correct.
where they could probably...
It all looks great for the media.
That's
It
what I'm
all looks
saying.
good for the news. And then when you go upstairs, there's no first floor supervisor. It's just here's a building, here's your rooms. And we see, you look at...
What's that picture, Michael? Or that one or the one to the right of it?
Yeah, this is just the outside.
Yeah, that's outside the hotel.
Fuck.
Yeah, no, it's bad. It's really, really bad in New York City. My wife, Christine, lived in New York City for 16 years. She loves New York City. And she's saying, I wouldn't go back because of what's happened since the de Blasio administration. And then obviously Mayor Adams kind of is balancing he's on the fence, and he's been charged federally for some crimes. But, de Blasio took it in this direction. Mayor de Blasio took it in this direction, and he completely, has sent this and created this environment. But here, this is just one example. This is Roosevelt Hotel that I know. I'm sure it's happening in Chicago. We've seen, stories in Chicago, Denver, other sanctuary cities where this is happening, and you don't have, okay, sure. And what he said, okay, they give us their names. Okay, my name's Pablo Hernandez. They're not going to have ID. They're not going to have anything. Why would they give that? Not to mention what you mentioned on one of your other with the other Cleared Hots a couple of weeks ago was the notice to appear.
Yeah.
They get the encounter at the border.
It's in the
it's 10 years.
It's in the mid-2030s.
In 2015, when I was working right at the height of my MS-13 gang work, notice to appears were 9 years out. That was in 2015.
And then let's add the stat to that. It's less than 1% of people actually appear when receiving
Why
an
would
NTA.
they? Why would they?
I honestly can't give you a good reason why they would, especially 10 years down the road.
And they're never at the address which they give the border. They never give that.
Well, they give them a wristband, though. Let's not gloss over that.
They do. Yes. I'm sure that wristband is very well kept as soon as they walk out that facility.
God. Okay, so all right, let me see if I'm understanding this. So from wherever they're coming from, wherever the origin, and this is another thing I was talking with Michael about too, the Lake Riley case. I believe that's her name. It was murdered. That's in Georgia, right, Michael?
Lake and Riley? I believe so.
Lake and Riley. I'm stepping on my dick with giving bad information. I am almost positive that
It's not that big.
Yeah, it was metaphorical. All right, like just come along for the ride, Michael. I'm almost positive that individual was flown directly into the United States. From where I'm not exactly sure, but it wasn't an issue of somebody coming to a point of entry at the southern border or the northern border and then working their way in. The government, the taxpayer, flew that individual directly in.
Yep.
And so I'm assuming this is whether they get bussed or flown or however it is. They come here. Let's say they do check in. Is there any level of idea or understanding or oversight of cool, check in, get your wristband, your kids get enrolled in school, but what if you just poof and vaporize the following
there's
day?
absolutely no oversight.
Yeah.
That person could absolutely go poof, get a nice meal for a week, and then go, I'm going to head out to New Jersey where my cousin is, and go work construction out there. And then they just completely disappear. Because, okay, great, you gave your name. But you don't have a cell phone, you don't have ID, you don't have Social Security, none of that. There's no form when they check in. I'd like to know what's next. Mm-hmm. Okay, they've checked in. Great. Then what? Okay, you put a name that not necessarily is their name on a piece of paper. But here's the other problem is when there's the encounter at the border, a lot of countries, like you said, Venezuela, Cuba, we don't have a relationship with, so we can't check them. So we don't know how many Venezuelans have come in who are members of TDA because we can't run a background check. Not to mention there are millions of migrants coming across the border. We're not going to be calling Mexico, Honduras, El Salvador saying, hey, how about this name? How about this name? How about this name? So it's just an enormous amount. And, my partner on a lot of these MS-13 cases was an ICE ERO officer, deportation officer. Mm-hmm. So he and I worked hand in hand on a lot of these MS-13 cases. He would tell me the stories of, how he was in 2018, 2019 at the border. And it was 30,000 a day. And he'd just be like, yep, here, boom, print. Okay. And this was years ago. Mm-hmm. So I can't even imagine. And there were 15 million encounters during the Biden administration. I don't know how many weren't encountered.
Yeah, because it doesn't put into perspective the gotaways.
Right.
Do you think either political party is telling the truth about what's going on at the border?
No. I think neither. I think the Republican Party is telling the truth as to what is going on at the border because that's the truth, and that's the truth hurts the Democratic Party. I mean, it hurt the Biden administration. Clearly, she lost. That was one of the things that
I think it was probably one of the major.
It was one of the major things,
yeah.
And I said that when she picked Waltz as her running mate, I stood there and I said, I mean, I couldn't believe that she didn't pick a Navy captain, senator out of Arizona who's on the border. What more sign of strength would that be? But you went with Tim Waltz. I'm like, okay, not to mention the 100 other mistakes the Democratic Party made in this election, but the Republicans just ran with the truth. And they're saying, this is how bad it is down there. Now, I think that there's a difference between what's on the media, where I talked with Sean, he was on your other podcast. Change Agency, right. And his information is from the media, which is you got to be careful with what you see on the media. because CNN barely reports Tren de Aragua, whereas Fox News and New York Post have it on there every other day.
They lean heavy.
Right. So you have to find where the middle is. But what New York Post and Fox News are talking about is fairly the truth because, like I said, I was a street agent for 20 years. I never became a supervisor. And I loved working cases. So I loved being on the streets, working the streets of New Jersey and talking to these, migrants and immigrants and, people in the El Salvadorian community and the Honduran community and the Guatemalans. And, I got to know them very well. And I got to know what the truth is and what the reality is. What you see in the media is 50% of the truth. The other half is what I try to get out and saying, listen, we need to talk about the truth of how bad it is out there. We need to talk about how bad it is that TDA has spread to a number of states. And up until this week, Montana was never on the map. Up until this week. I knew 7 months ago that TDA was in Montana. So they've been here for 7 months, but I wasn't, it's not my position to make a statement out there like that to say they're here in Montana without possibly jeopardizing, law enforcement action, that, the Gallatin County Sheriff's Office or Bozeman PD may be doing or the state. So I didn't want to put that out there, just, jeopardize something that they're working on because if TDA became aware that we're aware, then they may change their tactics. And obviously I didn't want to jeopardize that. But this is definitely, this is the tip of the iceberg right now.
Which is insane. Using the iceberg metaphor, 90% of an iceberg is underwater.
Yeah.
10% is what you see.
Yeah.
I don't...
But here's the thing is, okay, we're talking about, Tren de Aragua. That 10% is not all TDA. That 10% is not MS-13. That 10% is people who are against the U.S. interests. So we're talking Chinese, Iranians, other Northern Korean, from North Korea. Mm-hmm. So we're talking a lot of other individuals of foreign nations who have clearly subverted our system and entered the United States and are here with this. Director A of the FBI clearly stated about a year ago, the red lights they're spinning. They're flashing because, we are in a position. They just charged a guy, I want to say this morning, for planning to bomb the New York Stock Exchange. They arrested him this morning. FBI just unsealed an indictment that he was planning. He had explosives and was getting ready to detonate and conducted an attack on the New York Stock Exchange before Thanksgiving. Fortunately, he was talking to undercover FBI agents.
Dumbass.
So,
what do we got here?
Yeah, this was this morning.
Michael, that's Moana.
Yeah, I can't control that part.
Florida man arrested Wednesday, reboot the U.S. government by planning a bomb at the New York Stock Exchange. I hate to tell you, buddy, but the servers are not going to be destroyed. Even if you destroyed the stock exchange, no information would be lost. Not a fucking shred of it. Oh, man, I'm going to...
But here's the
Haran Abdul Malik Yener. That is a fucking mouthful.
Of Florida.
Well, by way of Florida.
By way of Florida.
Yeah. Charged in the attempt to use an explosive device to damage or destroy a building. He began investigating in Feb. Okay, so it sounds like this year, based on a tip, he was storing bomb-making schematics. Interesting, in a storage unit. They found sketches, many watches with timers, electric circuit boards, and other electronics could be used for building explosive devices. He told an undercover FBI agency he wanted to detonate the bomb the week before Thanksgiving and the stock exchange. God.
Yep. And here's the crazy thing. All right, this guy's clearly a moron. Did something stupid, either posted online, and then they brought the attention.
A dozen people who aren't morons.
Exactly. That's what worries me, and that's what Director A was talking about. Is that's the red light? Is this guy was a moron? The one that scares me is the lone wolf. Like the San Bernardino shooting from a couple of years ago, the husband-wife.
That one was wild because they never actually interacted other than online with the ideology that radicalized them. I had one of the cops in here. I think he was in I think he shot the husband, but it was awesome. They respond. Not that the situation was awesome by any stretch, but he was talking about just the fucking carnage and what they did, and they ended up getting in a gunfight in the road. But yeah, they got radicalized over the internet, which is
that's
even
21st century.
That's even another step.
Yep.
Removed. Yeah, the lone wolf. I mean,
that's what scares me.
So now, I mean, through the lens of, it's been an interesting few weeks, obviously. The election, I think, surprised 50% of people. Cool, whatever. We're all going to be okay, even though some people are legitimately fucking melting down. Ellen DeGeneres, I don't know if you caught the news.
I saw that move to England.
England, in a move that nobody gives a shit about, but yet somehow is mainstream media. Go live your life wherever you want.
Didn't De Niro and Bruce also threaten? I think De Niro was supposedly going to pack up, and Bruce Springsteen was going to pack up, and a lot of people, a lot of these artists threatened. I'm like, listen,
if anybody gives a shit.
This will be in the news for 5 minutes, and then tomorrow we're going to be talking about something else.
Yeah.
You really want to make a difference? You don't agree with the election? That's perfectly fine. But if you didn't vote, don't say anything. You don't have a leg to stand on.
Yeah.
But this is how elections work. This is how this country voted. In our country voted to bring in the Republican administration clearly across the board.
Yeah.
I mean,
so the new border czar, I'll paraphrase my words, not his, for clarity. Right. It's essentially the dildo of justice is coming, and it's not lubed. So
yeah, pretty much.
And it is melting people down. There are mayors of sanctuary cities already coming out and saying we will not provide assistance in any way. I've even seen one report, and I need to dive into this a little bit more, where a mayor essentially said that they would deploy their local law enforcement to impede the federal agents in their attempt to stop deportation. I guess, and my point in all this is, so there's a very interesting checker or chessboard out in front of you of moves being made.
Right.
Do you think it's even – I mean, first, it's like you're in a canoe and you're only worried about shoveling water out, and meanwhile there's still the hole where the water's coming in. Mm-hmm. So first you have to again, I'm not an expert in canoes, but A, stop the hemorrhaging.
Yes.
In using the canoe analogy, right? Stop the water coming in and then find a bucket to start clearing the water out so the boat doesn't sink. Do you think that's even possible with the immigration – really?
No, I don't think, based on what the Trump administration proposed, mass deportations. Again, citing one of your previous podcasts, it's not possible. It's not.
What are you listening to over there?
That was an accident.
Standard deviation. What video do you have pulled up?
Nothing.
Well, now you got to show it.
Yeah, what is it? What were you watching?
It's 6.5 Creedmoor versus 308 Winchester.
Is this just what you were watching over there while we're talking?
I don't quite remember how I got to this. It was a natural evolution. From
all right,
what
that's
I was
fine. I
looking
support
up,
it. That's an interesting topic for me.
Yeah.
6.5 Creedmoor and 308 are a very different round. Aim soft tissue with 6.5 Creedmoor. 308 might punch bone. It's fun.
There you go.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's possible to do what he is proposing. The millions. I think you had brought out the stats. Like if we deport 2,000 a day, it'll take I don't know how many years to deport 50.
I also think some of it is it's more rhetoric-y to try to prepare people.
It's part of the campaign.
Yeah. I mean, I
get that.
I would say, I don't know the man at all. I would have to imagine that he realizes what he is saying is practically impossible. I think he's just prepping people for the change in wind.
Yeah. Listen, I think that there's multiple layers of, migrant in the migrant community to go through. You've got all the criminal elements. That's the easy. Get them out.
Maybe start there.
Right. Well, here's the thing is, where do you draw the line? So first of all, if like the Laken Riley murderer, he was sentenced to life without parole. So he's in U.S. jail for the rest of his life. All the people that I've sent to jail in my years, they've gotten 20, 30 years typically, or some of them got mandatory life. So they're in federal prison for life.
Are they actually serving that though, or is there a little subtext where that says 20 years?
No, the federal sentence, if you're sentenced to life, you're doing life.
What if you're doing sentenced to 20? Do you get out in 10, or is the sentence
20,
the sentence? Okay.
20 years. So you'll get sentenced. The sentencing guidelines will say 20 to 30 years, and then the judge will hand on the sentence at the trial.
But you're doing that many days.
You're doing that many days. Right. So you're doing that many months. So when you completed your sentence, you then are handed over to ICRO for deportation. It's already final order of deportation has already been issued for you. So that guys are out. So they have to serve their time first. Everybody else is deportable. So in other words, but we got to find them. So if they're not in jail, they're on the streets. They've been charged with assault. Where in New York City, say a TDA member was charged with assault. He's not going to be held at Rikers. He'll get released pending the trial, right? Well, we need to go find those guys. So we've got those 1 million or so individuals that we can go find. But it's going to take time to find them.
Yeah.
Because here's the problem is, A, we don't know where they are unless there's an active investigation on them. But B, the problem is members of their own community are not going to turn them in. Because let's say you go into the Venezuelan community. Let's say one of the biggest hurdles for a law enforcement agent to investigate these crimes, investigate Hispanic crimes, is the language barrier.
Yeah.
I speak Spanish as my first language. So I was able to recruit sources, build a rapport with people. If you can't say, otra cerveza, por favor, and that's it, that's the extent of your Spanish, you're not going to get anywhere with these in this community. And that's why it's so difficult to conduct these investigations. That's why in the FBI, they lean heavily, the gang units lean heavily towards Bloods and Crips, those gangs, because there's no language barrier.
Yeah.
The Hispanic organized crime is not looked at that's a lot of work. I mean, the FBI agents that I know, everybody's taxed. Everybody carries 5, 6, 7 cases. The U.S. Attorney's Office, they're hounded. Unless you have a certain threshold, unless it's $100,000 loss, U.S. Attorney's Office won't even touch the case. So it's
fucking wild
because they're so overworked. So getting to that point where you're inside the community, let's say hypothetically you do. You talk to a Venezuelan, a restaurant owner. You say, we're looking for this guy. She's not going to say anything. She's not going to say anything. And here's why. Because if she goes, there he is over there, there's 19 other TDA members right next to him going, oh, you just deported my buddy?
Yeah. We'll see you when it's the least
We'll
convenient for you.
We'll see you later this evening at 3 a.m. We'll see if your restaurant is still standing there tomorrow morning. So she's not going to do it because she has her own self-interests. Yeah. So nobody's going to turn in these 1 million. But like I said, let's go back to the theory of the mass deportations. You don't have the infrastructure. You don't have the numbers. I think, President Trump's proposal of deploying the military, I think that's also dangerous.
I think it's a horrible idea.
It's a horrible idea because you're not asking military members to do law enforcement action.
Let alone the fact that they're not trained or equipped.
They're not trained. They're not equipped. Deadly force policy. All those. Tons of questions before you even get to they're doing law enforcement action. You're seeing Humvees and military guys walking down the streets of Union City, New Jersey.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that. So you go back to the deportation officers of ICRO. Let's say, okay, we're going to deputize FBI agents to do that. Okay, but there's only 13,000 FBI agents. Not all of them.
I also feel like they're extremely busy.
They're extremely busy. They got a couple things going on. So there's lots of things that have to be done before we get to that point of, okay, mass deportations, whether the hypothetical of building a camps and internment camps, which I think, and the 1798 situation, which President Trump is referring to of the Illegal Alien Act but that's not going to work because we have to be in a state of war with that country. And we're not in a state of war with Mexico, Honduras, and things like that. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that need to be done. We're not going to be doing mass deportations in these next 4 years. He's got 4 years to do this. It'll take him 1 year minimum to spin up to get the resources in position. I think a lot of it was campaign rhetoric, because that's what the people want.
Yeah.
I get it. You're absolutely right. We need to get a hold on this. We need to lock down the border 100%. But getting rid of what's already here, I'm all ears to hear what the solution is and how, the borders are. I think he's a great guy. Tom Holman, I think his name is.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
I think go for it. I think but it's going to be very, very difficult, if not impossible. I just don't see it happening.
We were talking about it on the podcast yesterday, and it was an interesting point brought up by the guest. And that is not, in addition to the logistical obstacles, there is the optic. And what media, certain sections of the media are going to focus on are videos and pictures of women and children. And that will lead the news, even though that is a portion of the people that are going to be wrapped up in this. But that is going to be a continuous uphill, pushing the rock uphill, trying to fight against that social optic.
We're still talking about the cages, at the border from years ago, the separating the fence. We're still showing those photographs of those videos. And
it's going to be exactly the same, if not worse.
Right. And they're still going to be showing that and still going to be there. And, okay, we have, control of both houses and the presidency and the Supreme Court. I get that, but that's still not going to change the freedom of speech and CNN and MSNBC. They're going to be talking about it. And, the next election cycle is in 2 years. So you don't want to, push it the other way too quickly because you've got an election cycle in 2 years. You've got a lot of senators, members of the House, and you don't want to lose because there's such a narrow margin.
Yeah.
So he has to balance it and going, okay, how far can I push this before getting to something like that, which will push, lose some senators or lose some members of the House, and then he loses control of both houses.
Yeah.
So it's got to figure out what the balance is.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see which of the campaign promises are fulfilled. Even Doge, as an example, which horrible fucking name.
Cracks me up.
I mean, Vivek and Musk, I don't know shit about either of them, other than what you can, read on the news, open source. A great idea. I'm really, really curious to see how, though. What mechanisms are they going to use to accomplish this?
Listen, I mean, I've spent 29 years working for the government since I was 21 years old. I spent 9 years in the Navy, 20 years with the FBI. So I know, and I've seen firsthand that there is waste, fraud, and abuse.
Yeah.
And going, wait,
Or
what?
just even at a baseline level, bloated bureaucracy.
Yes.
Let's start that there. Because
Absolutely.
the waste, fraud, and abuse is, I think, at least corollary to
Well,
that
I would
bloat.
look at that as wasteful.
Yeah.
Yeah. The bloatedness, I call that as wasteful. Let's use this appropriately. And it just the amount of money that is just getting dumped into different agencies. Listen, one of the things that I always say is HSI, Homeland Security Investigation. So that's the investigative branch of Homeland Security. I've got some really good friends, and I'm still very good friends to this day in HSI. And there are some very, very good people in HSI. But you look at how HSI came to be. HSI was only created, I don't think, 2008, so 7 years after 9/11. Mm-hmm. And they were getting dumped, Homeland Security was getting dumped so much money. And one of the theories, what happens at the end of the fiscal year? What do all agencies do? Let's spend this money because if we don't want to give it back.
September was a great month at the commands that I was at because they would say, do you need 2,000 pairs of boots? Because we have enough money for 2,000 pairs of boots. Yeah, use it or lose it.
Use it or lose it. And that's how, in my theory, that's how HSI came to be. HSI does the same job that we do at the FBI. The same investigation, same type, a little bit more, there's some changes to differences. But if you look at it on paper, we essentially do the same job.
How do they determine which organization does what then?
It's just whoever's there first. It literally comes down to that. Who is there first? So example, the Aurora, Colorado. Let's go back to that. HSI was the lead agency on that one. FBI was not. So FBI, I knew about Aurora about 3 months before it hit the media because the building owners reached out to me and they were like, hey, can you help us out? We know about your background and, MS-13. Can you guide us? Tell us what we should do, I said, okay. And they had told me that they had been in meetings with the FBI and that in those meetings, the FBI said, HSI is going to take it. We're good. Because it goes back to what I said before. FBI kind of is like Hispanic crimes. We don't have this. We got enough to do with Bloods and Crips and the other English-speaking gangs. So let HSI take it, and that's how that got punted to HSI. Now, what HSI did, I don't know, and what FBI did, I don't know. But from what I understand is, after it got in the media, FBI Denver was like, "Let's start a task force. Let's get these guys." Well, that's not what you said back in June. So. There's, each FBI division, works the crimes in their AOR, and they take their marching orders from FBI headquarters. So whatever decisions were made at FBI Denver, they have, he has his whole the SAC and the ASACs look at the whole spectrum of work, and they made that decision of saying, okay, we'll give that to HSI for whatever reason, but it's something that FBI Denver could have worked if they wanted to. So that's what I'm showing is you've got two agencies that are doing the same thing. And that's where I look at it. It's just like we're spending millions of dollars for HSI and they're doing a good job. They're making cases because there's plenty of work to go around.
Yeah.
There's plenty of federal crimes to go around. And that's why the U.S. attorneys are so overwhelmed because there's such burnout at the U.S. attorneys. So I worked RICO cases, which are extremely, extremely complex cases for most of my career. And I did 2 RICO cases that went to trial, both of them successful. But to get a RICO case, you've got to find a U.S. attorney that you've got a good relationship with, you got good communication with, and you got to work in it for years. It's a year's investigation. And U.S. attorneys, they're coming into the gang unit and they're spending a year there and then they're bouncing so they're getting their year into service and then they're out. So you're not finding the relationship to build a long-term RICO case because then you got to spin up a new AUSA. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot more complex. So it's a lot less RICO cases being worked. Not only AUSA is being moved out, but FBI agents who don't know RICO. They don't know how to work a RICO case.
Why are they so complicated?
Well, a RICO case is you got to find. So each individual conducts a racketeering type of crime. So if you're a member of a gang and you commit a robbery and you steal something at the store just for yourself, that's not RICO. But if you sell drugs or commit a robbery because that'll elevate your status in the gang, or that money is moved back into the gang for their coffers to buy guns, to buy drugs, to spread the fear of that gang, that's a racketeering charge. And I have to show 2 predicate acts. So if a MS-13 member in Union City, New Jersey, shoots another guy in the head, I have to shoot that the shooter, was predisposed. So in other words, they had the conspiracy. Hey, let's go shoot that guy. And then he pulled the trigger. That's murder in the aid of racketeering, because that shooter was looking to get his tattoo, to get his status moved up in the gang. And he was spreading the fear of RICO, the fear of MS-13. Those are racketeering. But then, so getting somebody but we have to show that the individual is a member of the gang and did it for the gang. That takes time. That takes interviews. That takes flipping individuals. So we had a homicide in Union City, New Jersey in 2015. We took them off the streets in late 2015 with a minor federal charge, but took them into custody to get them off the streets because we didn't want them doing more crimes. We took us 3 years. The superseding indictment wasn't until 2018.
Damn.
And that was 3 years that we had to just interviews, pressuring, talking to individuals, getting figuring out, where the little tickets were, and going through a motel to find one individual ticket where they checked into a motel on the way to conduct a homicide, and to show that as proof. And then we would take that ticket to show it to one of the individuals that was in custody and say, hey, listen, you're looking at 30 years, or you can flip because we got this little ticket showing that you checked into the hotel on such and such a day, and we have other people who are saying the same thing. And that's just talking and talking and talking. And so it took 3 years in 2018, superseding indictment. And then it was the trial. Because of COVID, we didn't do the trial until 21. Yeah, 21. And then that's just the federal court system. And then we did 6-week trial, and then they were all found guilty.
What kind of sentence you get off that type of stuff?
Murder in the aid of racketeering, mandatory life if you're found guilty. Conspiracy to commit murder, I believe the sentencing guidelines is about 20 to 30 years. Somewhere in that range. I think that, and then other type crimes is somewhere between 10. So 10, 20, 30 years is for the guys that were part of the crew. Leadership, a plea for the leaders would be somewhere in the 35 years. And that's if they pled guilty. If he went to trial, it was going to be mandatory life. But if you were to plead guilty to murder in the aid of racketeering, you're looking at 30 years.
Damn. How did you end up working for the Bureau? How did you find your way there?
It was funny. So I joined the Navy in 94. I went to OSA school.
Same.
Yes. Dam Neck, beautiful place. So I spent 5 years at sea. I went on the Stark and the McInerney, 2 fast frigates out of Mayport.
How was the OS job? I never once saw a radar scope.
Loved it. It was the best. It really was. Yeah.
Just in the CIC?
Yeah. I loved it. I loved being in the know. So that we were there. We had the CO and the XO, and we'd be in comms and communications. Listen, I never saw action. I was off of Iraq in '94. We did MEF cruise, so we did Desert Shield, and we were just loitering, just for waiting for a tanker attack or something like that. It never happened, but I loved it. I loved doing it. I had some great OS ones under me. over me, and watch officers and watch soups. And there's no way I would have learned as much as I did if not being on a fast frigate. If I'd gone to a carrier, you're doing that, that's it. But on a frigate, you were doing firefighting, you're doing security, you're doing quarterdeck watch. So you're doing a lot of different things on an FFG. So I had a lot of fun doing different jobs. And then after 5 years, I did 4 deployments in 5 years. And then I got shore duty, and I went to the Naval Academy. I was at Annapolis for 3 years, where I finished my degree. So I'd started at Syracuse in 91. After a year and a half, Syracuse said, yeah, you can leave now. You can go now. Bye-bye. There's the door.
It's not us, it's you.
It's you and your grades. So we're not really happy about you. So it took me a couple of years to be able to be comfortable with saying that, because that Syracuse kicked me out, and it was just bad grades. It's just I wasn't applying myself. I wasn't going to class. I was just going to have fun. I was going to football games, basketball games.
It's the college way when you're young.
It was. And so after a year and a half, Syracuse said bye-bye, and I joined the military to straighten my life out. Navy did that. While I was at the Naval Academy at night, I did night school through the University of Maryland, finished my bachelor's degree, and then 9/11 happened. A couple months after 9/11, I went to, I was contemplating, should I re-up? I was at 9 years, so I was looking at either being an XO on an LCAC or going to be an air intercept controller, an AIC on a carrier. So those were the 2 billets that I was looking at if I was going to re-enlist.
So were you going to switch from being enlisted to officer?
No. To be the XO on an LCAC, you're OSs.
No shit.
Yeah.
So at your 6-year mark, you're probably E6? E5,
I was 9-year mark. I was in E6 at the time. Yeah.
Sorry.
So I was an OS1. I got my OS1 at Annapolis.
Okay.
And then a few months after 9/11, I was, like I said, I had my bachelor's degree, and a senior chief said the best thing. I went to him and said, because I was looking at chiefs that were getting out, chiefs and senior chiefs that were doing their 20 years, and they were getting out, and they were doing anything.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're an officer, you're nothing. As soon as you get out. So I was like, what should I do? And senior chief said, get out, see what you can do with your degree. But all right. So I was considering my options. FBI Baltimore was recruiting for new agents because they were pumping through, right after post 9/11, they were pumping through 50 new agents every 2 weeks. So they came to the Naval Academy, and I was a room full of commanders and lieutenant commanders and, aircraft and, aviators, submariners, everything. And I'm just one enlisted guy in the room. And I'm saying, I don't have a chance. So she was talking about this and that, and, figuring you want accountants and, decorated warriors and everything like that. And she said, well, we're also looking for people who can speak languages. We're looking for Mandarin, Farsi, Hindu, Spanish. And I said, wait, what was that thing you just, what?
I'm not so good on the Mandarin and Farsi.
The Spanish thing.
Como se dice Spanish?
I think I could do that. I was like, all right, let me do it. September 11th, 2002. September 11th, 2002, I took the phase 1 exam. And then September.
Had you thought about the Bureau at all before that? Or was it literally
this
moment in this room?
It was, no. I had been thinking about FBI, Secret Service, all those, but I thought they were just so far out of reach. I was kicked out. I'd been kicked out of school. Obviously.
You had your degree now. I don't think anybody gives a shit once you get the degree.
Right. And that's the thing is. They don't care about what the GPA was. No. Do you have your experience?
Yeah.
And your degree?
They want to flip a page in the resume. Okay, cool. There's the degree. Moving on.
That's it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what my recruiter said. Hey, can you check this box? Yes. Good. All right. Moving on.
Yeah.
So I raised my hand. I said, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And then September 11th, 2002, I took the phase 1 exam. And then September 7th, 2003, I reported to Quantico. 1 year It took back then. That was fast.
Yeah.
Now it's taking, I believe, a year and a half, 2 years for.
Did you know after you had graduated Quantico, or I guess going into it, did you have any idea what your career path was going to look like, or did you determine that later on?
So you get your orders week 6, where you're going to be stationed. I knew Newark, New Jersey was going to be where. So everything. So in week 1, you write down 1 through 56, every field division, where you want to go. It's your dream sheet. 1 through 56.
They don't. Why go to 56? Can you just do top 3 here?
No, they want everything.
What the fuck?
There's people that get 54, 55. I mean, they really get screwed. Whoever got the bottom of the pile in the class would get a cash pot. So everybody threw in $5. Whoever was the worst pick would get the worst. Get that.
That's fair. That's going to help at least round the edges.
Round the edges a little bit.
You get shit faced one time, but you still got to go there.
Newark was 7th on my list. I had 1 through 10, everything in the Northeast. That's where my family was. So 1 through 10, and And so what you do is when you get your envelope with your orders in week 6, you hand it up and you go, my number 1 pick is Boston, which was mine. And I said, but I believe I'm going to blank. And I called it. I said, I believe, because I would talk to the previous classes and there was no Newarks. There was no Newark, New Jerseys. And I was like, and I was talking to other people in the class and nobody had Northeast. And I was like, and my New York was way down. I did not want to be in New York City. So I was like, I believe I'm going to Newark, New Jersey. Newark, New Jersey. And that's it. So I spent 20 years in Newark. I reported there in January of 2004, and everything was IT. Everything was international terrorism. So I got sent to an IT squad for 4 years. Then was able to shift to a DT squad, domestic terrorism, and I did white supremacy, skinhead work, which is New Jersey is one of the worst in the country.
Really?
Number 7, yeah. Because there's such. Tell you what, New Jersey is one of the biggest variety of you in North Jersey to South Jersey. You got Klan in West Jersey near Trenton. You have skinheads, like your traditional skinheads, down in Atlantic City.
Do those two get along?
They understand each other, but there's no like, hey, let's party together.
You do your shit, we'll do our shit.
Because it's different type of people.
Yeah.
I mean, your clans are what people don't understand in New Jersey is you literally have the Northwest New Jersey. That's Pine Barrens.
Yeah.
That's
It's like people who think New York is only the city.
Right.
Upstate's a touch different.
Right. So it's out there.
Yeah.
And you got, that's why you have Oxford. You had a clan, a clavern in Oxford, New Jersey. It's no longer there, but you had clan. Western. In North Jersey, you had white nationalists. And down at the Jersey Shore, you had skinheads, your traditional boot stompers. And in Atlantic City, you also had the Atlantic City skinheads. So ACS. So you have a lot of different ones. So I spent 4 years, and great partner of mine was the state of New Jersey. Brian and I worked a lot of those crimes for 4 years. After that, I had to make a decision. I was like, where do I want to go? I wasn't being utilized for Spanish, but I really wanted to get into that world. And I got diagnosed with a brain tumor. So that kind of derailed things a little bit.
What got you in there to go even get a checkup?
So it's actually just a few days ago was the anniversary of 12 years. So I was, dating so Christine and I had been dating a couple months, but I was suffering massive, massive headaches. And what I didn't know at the time were seizures. So I was, losing.
Like when you were sleeping?
No. I'd be awake. I'd be like on the phone and I'd feel like my lips get numb, but I thought it was just exhaustion.
I like where your head's at. Don't ever go to a trained medical professional.
Nope.
Be a dude and suck it up.
I thought it was
Fucking
just exhaustion.
Die quietly in the corner.
Christine to this day says, so I went through this for months. I ran a Tough Mudder with my sister with a brain tumor, and I didn't know. And then after the Tough Mudder, I had back-to-back episodes, one after the other.
And for people listening who don't understand the statistics of why women live longer than men, we're kind of describing a few.
This is it right here. Christine saw me have one of those, seizures, and she saw me and my hand went up like this, which it had never done like that.
Yeah.
And then she said, "What is that?" I was like, "What? No, it was nothing. It was nothing. I'm fine. I was just tired." And she has an uncle who has Parkinson's and another uncle who has MS. So she knows the signs. Yeah. So she said, "No, that's a neurological. You need to go get that checked." So going along those lines of what you just said, I made an appointment, and then canceled it.
Fuck yeah.
And then I ran the Tough Mudder, had back-to-back episodes, one after the next, and then I was like, all right, maybe it's something. So I went, got it checked, neurology. She told me, she's like, it was one of 5 things, brain tumor, nothing, MS. So it was a list of 5 things. Only one of them was good, whereas she goes, it could be just nothing. She goes, but it's probably one of the other 4. Had an MRI on October 30th of 2012. The next day, Hurricane Sandy hit, flooded out the MRI facility in New York City. So I didn't get the MRI results for 10 days. Then the neurologist calls me at my office in FBI Newark, and then she says to me, she's like, "Hey, can you come into my office?" I went, "That's not good."
I didn't say that.
That's
nothing
not
about
good.
that is good.
No.
Can you just tell me over the phone?
She's like, "No, just come on in."
Awesome.
And then,
which means that's great news.
So yeah, it was about the size of a racquetball. I've been growing 12 years, right across the top of my head.
Was she at least impressed at how long you put it off?
She was not. No, she was not happy. And to this day, Christine does not like it. She's like, "God damn it! I saved your life." So
that's what my wife says
right.
about my intestinal blockage. I keep telling her I think it would have been fine. It would have worked. It was a tummy ache.
It was just, hey, let's just throw a couple Advil in there. You'll be fine.
Dude, it would have been I would have been done 100 years ago. Or they would have taken a pitchfork and tried to relieve the blocked intestine that way. But either way, yeah, she directly lied to me and said, hey, just let me drive and we'll just work our way towards Salt Lake, and fucking drove immediately to an emergency room, of which I'm laying on the emergency room floor, profusely sweating within 5 minutes.
Yep.
And to this day, see, I saved your life. I'm like, I don't think so. I was actually just playing along because I didn't want you to feel bad.
Yeah. So we had the surgery. It was on the 16th of November of 2012. They literally scooped it out, popped it out of my head, and it was about the size of a racquetball. It had been growing so much that it actually started growing out in a second direction.
I'm assuming you were completely unconscious for this.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What kind of? We got skill saw along the head.
There actually is. So there's actually a box where they just cut out of my skull.
Yeah.
Because it was right at the top of the head. It was a perfect spot.
Okay.
So you actually can. I've shaved my head.
Oh yeah. You can see a little scar there.
Scar. Yeah. So I shaved my head so much that I've taken away a lot of the scar. But they took a box out. You can actually feel the screws. My kids always be like, "Let me feel the screws, Dad," and because they put a plate right on top of the skull part that they cut, and they scooped it out.
That would have been your chance to do like a dolphin fin,
or
something like in what's the one where the guy Michael he whistles and the arrow goes around Guardians of the Galaxy?
Oh, yeah.
Dude, you could have had that shit.
So I asked them. I said, "Hey, Doc," he's like, "Can I get that little piece put into a little jar with formaldehyde? I want to put it in my desk and say, whenever I have a situation, I'll be like, I'll ask the tumor because that's a part of me. Because they asked me, they're like, are you going to name your tumor? And I was like, no.
That's a really weird question.
They apparently a lot of doctors do. I was on the phone 2 days ago with a friend of mine in Connecticut. His 16-year-old son got diagnosed with the exact same tumor. It's a very, very common tumor, the meningioma tumor. It's the most common brain tumor that's out there.
Is there a particular cause for it? It just happens.
It just happens. A lot of people have a tumor, but it doesn't grow. So it's just the meningioma film around your brain. So you have, I believe, 3 films around your brain. The meningioma layer is one of them. Sometimes tumors grow in it. Sometimes they don't. A lot of people do have it, and some people don't. It's uncommon for younger people to have it. But I was talking to him, and he's like, yeah, the same thing. The doctor asked him, hey, did you name your tumor? So I wanted it put on a little jar. They're like, no, we can't do that.
I feel like they have to incinerate.
I want to be like my 8 ball and just ask the tumor, what should I do?
Yeah, very few people would find that as funny as you and I do, which I'm fine with. Immediate resolution of any of the symptoms.
Oh yeah, no, everything was gone. Everything was gone.
Shockingly enough.
Shocking is amazing. So I took off the next month and a half and went back to work in January, and then a few months later I transferred to the gang unit. I was able to, and then just happened to be that the agent was working MS-13. She got transfer orders, and I was going to be her co-case. And then when she transferred, they just said, here you go. Do you want to work MS-13? I was like, okay.
Finally digging into your language skills.
And that was it. And I never saw it back. And I spent the next 12 years working MS-13, Trinitarios, which is a Dominican gang. And then I got tapped for a task force out of headquarters. I had stayed in New Jersey, but I was one of 3 agents picked for this task force where we went after, it was a crew called Joint Task Force Vulcan. And we went after the hierarchy of MS-13 from the top down.
In the United States?
No, in the world.
Oh,
so that's
really?
So this was AG Barr. This was the Trump administration. He tapped AG Barr to create this task force. And the AUSAs in New York, New Jersey, the top AUSAs around the country were all brought together because obviously we had COVID and we had communication, so we could stay in our home offices. And they tapped 3 agents, me and 2 others. 2 of them are still active, to be part of this task force and find leadership that is not in jail. So a lot of MS-13 leadership is in El Salvadorian jails right now.
And I feel like it's not stopping them from running the organization at all.
No, but we just, we get the guys that did something. And, and we've gotten a couple of them out of Mexico, and that's where they've set up shop. In 2015, MS-13 middle management moved to Mexico and started getting together with the cartels. Mm-hmm. And they've been, running operations in the United States from Mexico. We indicted them federally, a number of them. We did a catch and capture with the Mexican government, and they would capture them, walk them to the border, and deport them because they're illegal immigrants in Mexico. They're all Salvadorian citizens. So they'd walk them to the San Ysidro border or in Texas, and then literally turn them over to the United States. And this was a great task force. We worked with HSI, ATF, DEA. Every agency was involved with this. So we would do the investigation and capture, and my AOR was Mexico. So we would do the investigation and capture. I'd go to HSI and say, hey, so you can't just walk across the border as we know, you can't just walk across the border unless you have a 1-day parole. So you can enter the United States freely on this date, and here's your letter. And we would do that. We'd grant that to these individuals that were wanted. They'd get walked to the border, and they would be granted 1-day parole into the United States. So not committing a crime coming into the United States. But as soon as they walk on U.S. soil, it'd be like, oh, look at you. You're wanted here in the United States. And that's how we took them into custody. And that was working with the Mexican immigration, because they would deport them. They would walk them to the border in Mexico.
Are they cuffed the entire time?
Yeah.
I'm in my mind. I'm planning out there should be this 5-foot gap between the U.S. and Mexico. And you got to give them a chance.
Run. Here. Take
We're
the cuffs off. Go.
When you hear the click and the cuff comes off, and we're not saying you're going to get away, but the U.S. is 5 feet that way, and the Mexico border is 5 feet this way.
And the corridor is 4 walls of chainmail.
So stretch the hammies out a little bit. What do you want to do, right? Man, that's not even sporting.
No, we got a couple of them. So they're, as far as I know, all the captures that I did, they've all pled. So they're all. No, excuse me. One of them decided to go to trial, and then he pled right before the trial was supposed to start. That was Mullah. He got his. I think he was in Ohio, so he was charged, and then another one, which I can't talk about his name, but he has pled. Mm-hmm. So they were good captures. Middle management, the senior leadership, we're not going to get them from El Salvador. They're in El Salvadorian jails for the rest of their life, and they're indicted here in the United States. But El Salvador won't turn them over to us.
That's what it is. Going backwards a little bit to the white supremacy stuff, is there a repetitive nature in the type of crimes those guys are getting into?
Well, the white supremacy, this has been a long time since I worked it, so I don't know really what's going on right now.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious the type of stuff you saw when you were working it.
It was kind of, keeping an eye on them, and talking to sources in case they started to plan something, whether it be drug trafficking or whether it be weapons or something. Back in 2012, they weren't like, hey, let's go bomb or let's attack a synagogue like they are today these days. So it's a little bit different now. But it was a lot more, hey, we're going to keep an eye on the situation. If there's drug trafficking and they're using it to further their cause, then yeah, that's domestic terrorism, because they want white supremacy or they want white nationalism. So that was our goal, is to get those. And I never had major cases like I did in MS-13 in my MS-13 years. White supremacy. It was a lot more was at the state level. So
you mentioned the Bloods and Crips a few times too. And growing up in California, I heard those terms and had absolutely no idea really what it was. I associated it with only Los Angeles because I was a fucking dumbass kid up in Santa Cruz and assumed that there was no gang activity there, which maybe there is, maybe there's not. I don't know. I wasn't involved with it. Are they still alive and banging in the U.S.? Because you almost never
Jersey. I know so the gang unit in FBI Newark they're busy. I mean, those
guys are still banging it out.
They're banging it out in Newark, Irvington, Elizabeth. Yeah, they're busy. I mean, they're there. I mean, I think they've just got the street rep and everybody knows it. And it's just like in the gang world, you don't go around saying, hey, I'm a Blood, or MS-13. You don't say, I'm an MS-13. You have a clique. So in MS-13, you had different cliques. In Bloods and Crips, I'm definitely not an expert to know this, but they have different, Grape Street or something like that. Along those lines, they're designated their neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So in Union City, New Jersey, back in 2015, you had 3 cliques of MS-13. You had Pinos Locos Salvatrucha, Juveniles Loco Salvatrucha, and Hudson Loco Salvatrucha. Every MS-13 is Loco Salvatrucha. And then the first word is typically, whether their neighborhood or Normandy's or the major ones. Normandy is one of the major ones where you have it started in California or started in North Carolina. Those are the ones where people identify themselves as Normandy. In New Jersey, you had Plainfield, New Jersey. You had Plainfield Loco Salvatrucha, PLS. Mm-hmm. Now I know that I've heard that there's different new cliques that have moved into Plainfield. So PLS actually kind of went away when we indicted them in 2013 and demolished them with 14 of them in custody. So it's all about like their local cliques, but they receive orders from the larger.
So I was going to ask. So they're under this umbrella organization, but operating a little bit independently and collaboratively, if need be.
So the 3 cliques in MS-13 in Union City were all worked together because they had one leadership, one member who was in charge of all three. That one member would then communicate to middle management, who would be in Mexico or El Salvador, and get their orders. And MS-13 was very, very strict. You don't do something on behalf of the gang without getting approvals. You had to request permission to do homicide, drug trafficking, and they knew about this. And there was just no way about it. You weren't an independent contractor. So you got those permissions, you got to do that, and that's how it moved. The communication line came from El Salvador to Mexico and sometimes it would go up to the senior leaders, sometimes it wouldn't, depending on how big of a case it was. But I don't know how it works on the Crips and Bloods side.
Yeah.
But the MS-13 is very structured, and that's how TDA works too. It's very much communication. There are kidnapping cases in South America where the ransom is being collected by U.S. members. There are members here in the United States that are collecting ransom for a kidnapping that was conducted in Peru or something like that. So they would be communicating with an individual here in the U.S. to collect the ransom to release somebody in Peru. So there's a former FBI official who came out and he said in the media, most gang experts, and I remember this quote because it burned in my brain, most gang experts agree that Tren de Aragua is not very sophisticated. It's like I stopped and I looked at and I texted him right away. I said, how can you say that? My information comes from headquarters. I said, well, that's exactly the reason why you're saying that. Because the people at headquarters don't know the reality of how sophisticated this gang is. Mm-hmm. I talked to the guys on the streets. When the guys on the streets put it into reports, they get to headquarters. That's all the management is reading is reports. So they don't see the sophistication. They don't see the communications like the case agents do. So I disagreed with him. I mean, this is a very, very sophisticated gang. They're using Bitcoin. They're money laundering. They're moving the gold, as I was saying. So this is a gang that is, moving everything. And the thing that worries me the most is the human trafficking. I mean, I'm working with Dustin Diefendorfer down in Bozeman.
One of the most complicated last names ever.
Diefendorfer. And you know how I learned it? Watching one of your podcasts.
Before we even went live, or maybe I did it when we were on air. I'm like, hey, man, how the fuck do you say your last name? Because you're like, defer.
He's like Dustin.
Yeah, just Dustin.
Just Dustin.
Yeah.
So Dustin, I was just talking to him this morning. He's on his way to meet up with Justin.
I know he was working with Jared Hudson.
Jared.
Yeah.
So he's on his way to meet Jared right now.
Yeah.
So Dustin and I are working in Bozeman to put together a unit kind of like Jared's got, but we're going to do the Rocky Mountains.
Yeah.
To combat human trafficking, smuggling, and the
I'm in on this. Where do I sign up?
We're talking right now. So he's brought me on board.
Can I shoot pedophiles in the face?
I don't think that'll be legal. But
what if they try to touch my penis?
There we go. That's self-defense. He's threatening me. So hey, self-defense.
This is my issue with action, and I told Jared the same thing. My issue with being around these people is I don't know if I'd be able to hold myself back.
Yeah. So
because like life in prison that this guy got in Georgia,
tough.
For that fucking 911 call of her fighting for her life for almost 18 minutes. Go listen to that if you're a parent.
Yeah.
And then tell me that life in prison, and I mean, I don't care if he's having the most horrendous life in prison. I would hope that he is just getting ass fucked. To the degree that Elon Musk calls him and asks him for advice on his tunneling operation every fucking day with a dude wearing a fucking mask, Batman mask. I don't know why Batman mask. Even that is not enough. Like
no, agreed. And it's that's why it's tough is because there's two like if the FBI ever said, hey, we need to transfer you, there was two areas where I was just like, no, I'm not going to do that. One of them was the VCAC squad, the Violent Crimes Against Children, the VCAC squad. And they're excellent some of the top agents that I know. And they're, vetted and cleared yearly and make sure that they're not, they're drowning. And the other one was white collar crime. I just didn't have the patience to sit there and look at spreadsheets. And so those are built for that. I was built for the gang world, which I did, and I fell in love with it.
I know some people who work in the ICAC world, the Internet Crimes Against Children.
Yeah.
And I know that there is software that exists that does the best that it can to try to shield them from some of the things. But dude, your
brain.
It's got to be like you're drinking tea, right? The longer that tea bag is in there, I'm sorry, the color of the water changes.
Yeah.
And at some point, it's more tea than it is water. And
Right.
I have nothing but an immense amount of respect, but I could not. I couldn't contain myself.
And that's why I'm helping Dustin put together this unit. So he's working with Jared and the North Carolina crew and other guys to build a Rocky Mountain team. They're gonna come on board as directors and for our 501. And then
Wouldn't Dustin need to become a sworn officer of some kind? There's some legalities involved in that, right?
Exactly. We're figuring that out. Yeah. And they're going to bring me on board to, be more of like the case agent and kind of like putting the pieces together.
Yeah.
We're getting together, a group of guys to be the guys who hit the door, put together the case. But I'm just going to look at it from a 30,000 foot and go make sure we have all the pieces, communication, relationships. If we work with Gallatin County or the state of Montana, there's, I've got various meetings in place to meet with people to look at, to kind of facilitate that. But we're getting the best people in the area to be a part of this. And, whether it's on the reservations and finding all these sex houses that TDA may have, or if it's getting, some pedophile off the street, we want to, and that's, this is not just Montana. We're going to look at the Rocky Mountains.
Yeah.
So we're going to work at Denver, all of this area, this region. So we're putting together a team to see what we can do.
What was the full name of it? It's going to have to be catchy.
I don't know if Dustin has it named yet. I think it's just the Rocky Mountain. Right now, I think he's calling it the Rocky Mountain Task Force. I think it's something like that. But
it's unacceptable. It's not catchy.
It's got to be catchy. It's got to
like Rocky Mountain Assholes, RMA.
See, it's got to be. You got to have it tricky like that.
Yeah.
Got to have it be able to do a coin, a little challenge coin with it.
Oh God, I hate those fucking things. My wife, absolutely fascinated by them.
Right.
I explained to her,
but there's a lot of people out there that love them. That they're just obsessed with them. That they're. I have
know.
so many of them. It's just.
Have you ever had somebody pull one on you at a bar?
No, I've never had somebody. Never had that either.
So
Thank
for people
God.
who are completely fucking lost in space right now, from a military perspective, the challenge coin. I don't have one anywhere near here. I'd hold it up. Probably the size of a 50-cent piece, which most people probably don't even know that size anymore. Double-sided in the military, you can get challenged at a bar. I don't even know what the actual creation purpose for these things was. They were always used in bars.
Right.
So if somebody challenges you, you throw a coin down. There's going to probably be a rank associated with the coin that you put down.
Right.
Like one time I did some tandem stuff for one of the deputy directors for the agency. And so he gave us – all the high-level guys travel around with them. It's like this is a 2-star equivalent, a 3-star equivalent. So let's say you throw down one that's a 1-star equivalent, an admiral in the Navy, and you think you're challenging somebody. And they throw down a 2-star equivalent, you pay. The person with the lower rank one gets paid. Or if you don't have one in your wallet – and again, I don't know if that ever happened – or if I was ever there, but I heard it talked about all the time. But people get into these things, and some of these designs are intricate. There's the bottle cap openers.
Crazy ones.
There's ones that are shiny, and
one's a canine paw because for a canine unit, there's some crazy.
It's
ones
wild. I threw away. I'm not joking. One of the rollable garbage cans, probably when we were leaving San Diego to move up here, and my wife Leah is fascinated with these things, and I don't even have the heart to tell her the metric fuck ton that I threw away. But so I put a post out on Instagram. I'm like, hey, my wife digs this shit. And she filled up like 2 flags. So
no. Yeah. It's collective.
It's a real thing.
It's an obsession for a lot of people who it's crazy.
By the way, Michael, she has decided that the coin flag at the house will be here in the studio somewhere. Just filling you in on that.
I'll bet you it's going to be right behind you. Right there.
Maybe behind the curtain. No, I'll put it somewhere in the hallway where she can see it because she still gets them every once in a while. Mm-hmm. Right now it's sitting at our house, which was not the expressed desire I had for trying to get her challenge coins. I didn't want them just be fucking strewn about the house. So we're going to hang it up and fucking challenge coins. How did we even get on that?
I don't know.
Oh yeah, the Rocky Mountain assholes would be
Rocky Mountain assholes.
Yeah.
So I think that would be good.
I'm in on this.
I don't know what Dustin. Yeah, no, tell Dustin. Like I said, we're meeting next week once he comes back from his op that he's going to be doing.
Yeah. I like the way Jared sets it up. It's a force multiplier, right? He goes out there, he teaches you, gives you the structure. Yeah,
see, but it's different for Jared because he's a TFO. He's a TFO with HSI, so that's different.
Yeah, he's playing in the legit federal law enforcement space.
Right. So which makes it. And I listened to what Jared was talking about on his. that it's as the law enforcement agent, he's able to carry both, hats.
Well, and he's
making
handing
sure
it over
that
to
he's
local law enforcement, is my understanding.
Right.
They're executing the operation.
correct. And that's the plan we're going to build a relationship with one of the locals. Dustin and I are both in Gallatin County. We're not in the city of Bozeman.
Mm-hmm.
So whether we go with the sheriffs or we go with the state, that's to be seen. Like I said, but we want to build a relationship with one of the local agencies and have them a part of the task force so that they're and that I'm keeping everything in line with the case, making sure everything is collected properly so that we could hand it off to the DA for
they have to carry the water.
They have to carry the water, exactly. Making sure that I'm collecting everything correctly for the DA for them to charge.
I feel like Dustin and I, mostly I, should be deputized because that would help.
I think that's awesome.
I don't know how any of that works.
Me neither. I know that I don't.
You're good because you got HR 218. You got 20 years of federal law enforcement.
Right.
You're good to go in any state.
Yes, that's true. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
So no, I loved it. I'm excited to do it, and this is something that I wasn't anticipating. But Dustin reached out. I got hooked up with him and through Nick Jones. Nick hooked me up with Dustin, and Dustin and I have been chatting for the last month or two to put this thing together. So I'm excited about doing that. It'll be good to take care of these guys and make sure that they're dealt with properly.
Why did you decide to leave the Bureau? Sounds like you were having a good time.
First off, 29 years was long enough. I felt like, since I was 21 years old, I worked for the government. So
That's a fair argument.
For me, that was number one.
How did your Navy time count in your Bureau time? Were you
Paid for it. I had to buy it.
Buy it back?
Yeah, I had to buy it back.
What do they charge you per year?
I think I paid somewhere in like the 4,300 range for 9 years, which is not bad.
That actually isn't bad.
Well,
Rolled into a retirement
right?
account?
Because that was in 2003.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. So that added 9 years to my retirement. As soon as I retired, I had to do 20, and then I would get the 9 years. So I retired as if I was 29 years.
Oh, that's
in the
excellent
FBI.
from
Right.
a retirement perspective.
Pension wise, we're not great as FBI agents. We're retired. We get for 20 years. You have to be 20 years old. You have to be 20 years and 50 years old to be able to retire.
Okay.
Mandatory is 56.
Okay.
56, 57, somewhere in there. And if you do 20 years with government service, you get 36% of your pension, 36 of your high three. But with the 9 years, I got 45%. So listen, I'm not arguing. It was good. It's good pay. My pay, as an FBI agent after 20 years was, fairly good. So, I was happy with that. So I looked at it this way. It was a couple-fold. One, 29 years. Two, as soon as I turned 50, I was like, okay, I'm going to have 29 years government service. The more I get, because I was theorizing, I was going to go find a job. The older I get, the less marketable I am. I can earn more if I get out with my pension and the salary. I'll be making more than I'm making as an agent. So that was another reason. And I was tired. I was tired of the bureaucracy. Love the Bureau. It could use some change. It can use some change. Especially at DOJ, there needs to be change.
What would cause that change?
Management.
Is it literally, though, something like a new administration coming in and lopping heads?
I think the problem. So here's the problem. One of the problem I found is that at the stages where we dealt with early, this is something I was seeing since 2015, 2016, is that people that were getting into positions of seniority within the FBI sometimes, but a lot of times at the DOJ, people were as further away from being a case agent that they were getting, the less they were remembering where they came from, being a case agent. And the more they were looking at their future in whatever agency, their political future, not politics like being a politician, but so a lot of my cases had international ramifications, whether it be capturing somebody or arresting somebody or charging somebody. So a lot of these had to go up for approval. I wasn't just dealing with a bad guy in Newark. Sometimes I did, but a lot of these had to go up for approval. And a lot of times, especially at DOJ, they would look at it and they go, okay, this is a good case. This is a bad guy. We need to put in jail. But if this goes bad, how could it reflect on my career? I might not get that next promotion. So why don't we do this? Well, let's shelf that project and we'll talk about it here in 2 weeks. And that was constantly the conversation. And I directly experienced this on one of my cases. It was constantly, we'll talk about it in 2 weeks. But no. We'll talk about it in 2 weeks. And the reason was I would hear behind the channels, I would hear back channels was that, these people wanted to get promotions. And that's what they were doing. And that's one of the reasons why I go on CNN, Fox News. I got into that network because I was tired of these, senior leaders, on there knowing what they're talking about when it was something about a case agent should know. I was a case agent for 20 years. These guys, they've been retired for 10 years, and they're great guys. I'm sure they're fine. They spend a career, and they're honorable FBI agents, but they're assistant directors, SACs. They haven't seen a case file, they've been retired for 10 years, and then they didn't see a case file for like 15 years.
Yeah, they can give you the broad strokes, but it's the same thing as people who ascend the rank ladder, even in the SEAL community. I mean, if you're getting into the flag officer level, you could probably talk ad nauseum about the doctrine of the SEAL teams in broad strokes, but you are as far as you are going to possibly be from the boots on the ground reality.
Right. And I was tired of dealing with that. Let's see, this could hurt my career. Let's see if I do that. And I was just tired. I was exhausted of fighting. I was exhausted of fighting the Bureau saying, Hispanic gang crime is important. I'm exhausted from just, constant, just hitting a brick wall and then just going around. And that's why I was successful, I think, as a case agent. I mean, because I was constantly going around it. And, to the case of like in 2016, I had an MS-13 member who was in Plainfield. He was a fugitive. He murdered one of his buddies, chopped him up, and disappeared. And then I said, and I'm the type of guy who's like, let me throw the kitchen sink. And I would try and, put posters up. I thought he was in Maryland, Virginia. Okay, boom, boom, boom. And then they'd be like, oh, okay, you're not going to catch him. And I was getting not negative feedback from the U.S. attorney's office. They're like, you're not going to find him. It's okay. And I was like, no, let me put him on 10 Most Wanted. And there was a spot on the 10 Most Wanted. And I put him up. 4 months later, he was found. He found in Maryland playing soccer. So another soccer. So Walter Giovanni Gomez, a.k.a. Cholo. So he was indicted. In 2011, he stabbed one of his buddies because he thought he had been, talking to another gang, 18th Street. Chopped him up, stabbed him, cut his throat, beat him with a bat. I mean, multiple ways to kill him. And he jumped out a window when Union County prosecutor's office came to arrest him. In 2013, they came to arrest him. And he jumped out a window, disappeared.
What floor?
2nd floor. So he survived.
They didn't even think about going to get back of the house?
Nope. That's great. Come on, set up a perimeter or something, right? Went off into the distance, disappeared. Rumor was that he was in Maryland, Virginia, where there's another MS-13 stronghold. So we went to trial with the rest of his buddies. And then as soon as the trial was completed in 2015, my AUSA said, go forth, find him. Because they didn't want me to find him before that because it could jeopardize the trial. It's a major, major trial, 4 month long. And they said, go forth. Took me about a year. I put him on the 10 Most Wanted in April of 7. Kids were born in August of 16. Yeah, April of 17, I put him up. And in August of 17, we got a phone call. Guy was playing soccer and looked across the field and said, that guy looks like the one. That guy looks like the one on the billboard. So we went in. We did surveillance on a house, and we watched a car depart. It was a female. We followed the car. We thought we were just getting plates. We followed the car and we were not an arrest team. We were just getting plates on the vehicle and getting an idea of what was going on from the tip. Went to a strip mall, and out he came. He was getting a haircut, and then we jumped on him, and that was it. That was August. That was August of 17.
How long was he on the run for?
I believe 5 years.
Did he even try to run when he saw you guys?
Nope. No. He took it. He pled, and we got him and we transferred him up to New Jersey. He pled guilty for the charge, and he did the homicide. That's a good example. 25 years. So he pled guilty to 25 years. Man. Because we had multiple people. We had just completed the other trial with multiple people that were witnesses and testified. So he knew his goose was cooked. He was like, all right, they already got those guys. We went to trial with, I think, eight of his cohorts. All 8 of them were convicted. So he already saw.
The writing was on the wall.
The writing was on the wall. He goes, if I go to trial, I will get life. He goes, let me do 25 years. So he pled guilty to 25 years.
How's the Bureau? Well, how much time do you have to give the Bureau letting them know you're not going to continue working for them? What's that process like?
I think, if I remember right, is 6 months, 6 month notice.
You got to write them a letter.
It's all click, 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 click. Everything is via the FBI net on the classified side. So it's just filling out paperwork, HR, and then getting this and make sure you know what you're doing. It's a good process. There's good people at headquarters that know that everything's set straight. But I knew, like I said, September 6th, 2023 was my last day.
Do they just start winding you down after that declaration a little bit?
Yeah.
Handing stuff over?
Well, because like I said, that was the official, but you're talking to your supervisor, you're already telling, hey, I'm out of here. So yeah, it was, so it's funny that when the caseload that I was carrying is I was the MS-13 agent for New Jersey. That was it, for Newark, FBI. There was, the other, so you have what's called resident agencies, the smaller offices throughout the state. And there's a couple.
I think there's one just down the road, actually.
Right. And there's one in Bozeman. And there's, I think, 9 RAs in Montana.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there's one here in Kalispell.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there is. So you have other agents that help out. But I was kind of like the guy who really worked it for New Jersey. And I had to start handing off the cases to other individuals who spoke Spanish and a couple individuals that didn't, because that's the way it worked. They were like, he's the new guy, take the cases. So whether somebody is still being done. I mean, I didn't leave with any major cases on the platter, but I know there's still activity going on up there. I mean, I know in New Jersey it's still very, very active because it's 9 million people that live in New Jersey, and a big, huge portion of that is Hispanic communities, the Salvadorians. So,
what do you do on your last day at the FBI? Just an office pop on the way out?
Yeah. So we had a nice party. Everybody signed a little, thing for me. And for me, it was, I had the big poster. The public affairs office, when we had the capture of the 10 most wanted, they gave me the big posters.
Nice.
The posters that were at the press conference. So they gave me those. So everybody signed the back of those. So I've got those hanging in my house in my basement. And that was it. That was, it was like, okay. Bye. It really was. I mean, I got some nice stuff, and it was very nice. I got some great people, U.S. Attorney's Office, the other people in the gang unit. So it was good. But like I said, everybody retires, and that's one of the things that I found that's curious. 10 years ago, so the mandatory retirement I think is 57, but you can ask for extensions. You can ask for 1 year extension, 1 year, but mandatory is 60. No matter what, you cannot be an agent after your 60th birthday. So you can ask for 1 year extensions. 10 years ago, you were seeing guys asking for 1 year extensions constantly, 57, 58, 59. They were asking, hey, I just want to stick around for another year because it's great work. Today, you're not seeing that anymore. You're not seeing people asking for extensions. You see people bouncing as soon as they're eligible.
The second that their clock ticks over.
As soon as their clock ticks over, because they're just like, they're sick and tired of, the bureaucracy of why we're here. There's a lot of still great people that go past 20, and I'm still really good friends with a lot of them. But you're not seeing the, hey, let me stick till 58, let me stick to 59 type of thing. So a lot of people are going straight to 57, and then they're just like, all right. Or, I've been fortunate enough. I have 2 kids who are 8 years old, twins. So I'm lucky enough now that, I've retired so I can spend time with them. I'm Mr. Mom for them. So, so Christine, she can go do other things. She's, she's really the brains of the operation and with our company.
As is the way.
As is? That is. She's literally, she's brilliant.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of the Mr. Moms. I get up at 6 a.m., get their food, their breakfast ready, their backpacks ready, blah, blah, blah. And this is one of the gifts that I get because I get to spend time with my kids. Whereas a lot of agents, Christine and I met later in life. I was 39, she was 38. We didn't have our kids until 42. And a lot of these guys who are agents, met their wives when they were in their 20s or 30s, and then they had their kids. So their kids are going through college now. And that's why they stick around for an extra year. Oh, let me finish this college, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll go retire with my wife. Now I get to spend time all these years with my kids, go to their jiu-jitsu, go to the Gorilla Cup and do all these things with them and not have to worry about, okay, I got a source calling me or something. So I carry one phone now. It's great. I used to carry 3 phones. There was a time when I carried 3 phones. And I don't have to worry about it anymore. It's huge relief. I missed it for like about 2 to 3 months afterwards. And then I visited a buddy of mine in Boston and I stayed at his house, and he's an agent in Boston. And I went into his house, and I'm standing there in the kitchen watching him come home from work. He's got his gun, his badge, his phones, and everything. His bag is dropping it all. He's on the phone with the source, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I don't miss it anymore.
Yeah.
You just helped me get over that.
Yeah.
Because I don't miss that. I mean, I loved it while I was in there. I loved the adrenaline rush of working a source, making a case against, a shithead MS-13 or something like that. And I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I wouldn't change anything for it. But I'm glad I'm in this phase of my life now. And this is really what I'm working for, and having this company and creating with Christine, and we have this company down in Bozeman. We do the security consulting. She's a forensic accountant, CPA, so she's, like I said, brilliant beyond dreams. But I'm happy I'm out.
How'd you pick Bozeman from Jersey? Not exactly like their neighboring cities.
No, they're not. They're just not around the corner. No. So I'd always wanted to come out west. I grew up skiing in Colorado. So I grew up skiing out west here. And Denver had been what I'd wanted to get for years. Back in the Navy, I wanted to get Cheyenne Mountain. I wanted to go there, but I couldn't get orders. Then when I was FBI, I tried to get FBI Denver, but transferring within the FBI isn't like your traditional, like you see in the movies. Oh, I want to be in Denver. There's a list. You gotta, if you want to be a street agent, there's a list where you have to sit on, and based on your seniority, they'll call you up.
Way up, yeah.
But I wasn't anywhere near those because Denver's popular. So I just had to wait until the end of my career, and I knew it. So we had looked at Denver. That in 2018, I decided I was going to retire at 23. So in 2018, we were looking at Denver, West Denver, and then Denver's not the Denver that we knew anymore. So it's, kind of a shithole. So we said, okay, maybe not Denver. Where else do we want to go? A good buddy of mine who I grew up with in Connecticut, Jeff Green, I reached out to him. So he was living in Bozeman. And I said, Jeff, where do I go? He's like, come up to Bozeman. So I reached out. So I flew up here. I landed in Bozeman back in 2019 and spent 5 days there, flew back to New Jersey. I said, Christine, you got to go see this place. She flew up there, saw it. She flew back. She goes, that's it. That's where we're going. And we bought a house back in 2020.
Hell yeah.
Right before the big climb.
Yeah. That'll be beneficial for you in the long run.
Oh, yeah. It is. Yeah.
Property values.
If we had to pop our chutes now, we'd be fine.
Yeah.
We'd be fine. So that was it. Bozeman was it. And we decided in 2020 that was where and we rented the house out. And now we there's no way we could get into this house now based on housing costs and everything like that. But we landed in Bozeman. Beautiful. Love it. And right now we're getting into the season, which is why we came here. The winter is skiing, and we'll be at Bridger Bowl. We're at Big Sky. We'll be skiing with my kids. I want them out there wintertime and being outdoors.
I love the winters here.
Love it.
I actually think a lot of locals try to make it sound worse than it is. Not that the cold snaps are real. You get 1 or 2 per year. It's going to be negative, fill in the blank.
Yep.
But the rest of the time, especially here in Kalispell, it hovers right at around freezing here in the valley.
Right.
And the snow is just getting nuked on the mountain. Mm-hmm. And occasionally it's a little
it's funny.
Slip and slide down here.
Christine had to go back to New Jersey this past weekend, and back in New Jersey it was 55 degrees. And people were in coats and hats, and she was in a tank top. She's like, this is fine. It's 55 degrees.
It's their one chance to get their Patagooch out. That's where they need their Arctic, level fucking explorer jacket. So
hey, listen, however it works for them. For us, we love it, and I'll be outside in a 40 degrees and sunny day. I'll be on a short sleeve shirt, and it's beautiful. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous, and I love it. Yeah. And this is why we moved here, and then we set up here, and I want the kids. I wasn't happy in New Jersey anymore. I wasn't happy. I spent 20 years on the shitty side of New Jersey, seeing the absolute awfulness and just the traffic and the congestion. I know people love it, and that's great, and they have a lot of families there. That's great. But I was tired of it. I mean, driving up here this morning took me just about 4 hours 45. That's a drive to Washington, D.C. from New York City. And then when we did that, and I had to do it, you would do it for like an overnight. As soon as we're done here, I'm driving back because it's a super easy drive. Yeah. And it's not bad to look at. Whereas in New Jersey, you're going 55, then you go 30, then you go 80, then you go 20. It was just constant depending on the waves of the Jersey Turnpike, the Garden State. Listen, I loved it, and I wouldn't change anything about that because I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for New Jersey and what I did. But I'm glad I'm out. And I understand that there's a lot of people that are doing the same thing. They're just like, we got to get out of it because it's just the congestion of people living on top of one another. It's just,
How do we get people to pay attention to the danger that does exist without going too far over the top, because that's people are told, there's this existential threat and the guillotine is halfway up and it's going to come get you at any moment. The math and stats don't really support that narrative.
Right.
But it also shouldn't be ignored. There has to be this realistic, reasonable middle ground where we can openly talk about the threats that do exist.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what you think for your average, let's just call it for your average Montanan.
Mm-hmm.
What can somebody do to actually at least enhance their situational awareness or safety?
Well, that's one of the things I do is every week, maybe one or twice a week, I write a newsletter on my Substack where it's just I put out just awareness of shit that's out there, whether it be a cybercrime, whether it be a gang, or whether it be a new drug that's out there or a new scam that's out there. So I try to make people aware of it, and that's the biggest thing for people to be is aware. So I do security consulting for clients which are of the YC Yellowstone Club level, high net worth type people, and just giving them advice and saying, hey, listen, you know a lot about money, you know how about making money.
I know about the people who want to take it from you violently.
Exactly. Violently or not violently. So I know of people, one of my clients, so he got scammed using social media engineering, social engineering. So he lands in Miami, and his phone, bing, 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 text messages. So when you log into a website, a lot of times it say, we'll send you a 4-digit code. Please enter this code, right? Second tier identification. So he was getting, someone's trying to get your Facebook, someone's going to this. So he got like 6 or 7 different websites saying that someone's trying to access it. So for him, he panics like, oh my God, somebody's trying to hack all my accounts. One of the accounts was where his Bitcoin was, cryptocurrency. And that was one of them. So he's like, shit, somebody's trying to get my crypto. He gets a call from the crypto company saying, hey, listen, we see that somebody's trying to hack your account. And this was an American, not something from a foreign country, saying, hey, we can see somebody's hacking in your crypto. We want to help you out. We want to secure, make sure, blah, blah, blah. All right. And they're talking him through this, and he's giving all the information up. Like that, $800,000 in crypto gone. It was a targeted attack.
Oh,
it
for
wasn't,
sure. And
right.
Coordinated
attack, U.S.-based interests, U.S.-based individuals, a lot like a group called Scattered Spider. That's the group that attacked Las Vegas. So they attack Las Vegas using engineering and figuring out a way in, and then they attack it. So this was essentially, people are like, well, that was a scam. No, this was a robbery. Yeah. They engineered him with they put him into fear. Then when they called him, he's like, oh my God, thank God you're calling me. I want to protect my crypto, which is in there. And he didn't realize that he was talking to those that were sending those text messages. So these are the types of things.
What an elegant system.
It was, you hate, but you can't say, but that was pretty good.
Yeah, to be able to follow it up with the alerts on the phone, to follow it up with a call, pretending to be the person that they would want to talk to into the first place.
Yep.
Those are different than the calls I get from the IRS agents that are clearly in India.
I can't stop getting these phone calls of we see your tax.
I fucking love them. I call them back.
I mess with them. Christine she'll be like, just hang up. I'm like, no.
They want my credit card number, and I'll pretend like the phone glitched for like the last 2 digits, and sit there and back and forth. Oh man, it's amazing.
It is. It's fascinating. Or when you get the text message where it says hi.
Oh, I love that one too.
Hey.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm Judy. Is this
I know.
Sophia?
And I've done the change agent episodes on that where those are, they're like in Malaysia or in the Far East.
Slave markets.
Totally.
Yep.
And so I'll just string those people along to a degree. I don't know what that says about me, but
But yeah, so I try to keep these people, aware of the situation. And it was alarming. So, Christine's a CPA, and we spoke at a CPA conference in Missoula a couple months ago. I taught a 1-hour session on different scams that are out there. And it was alarming to see some of the most common scams, that the grandma scam, Yep. And I would ask the room, I say, how many have you heard of the grandma scam? And I only got like 2 or 3 out of a room of 40. And it's just like, this scam has been around for years, and they are not aware of it. So I want to put the awareness out there of saying, hey, listen, these are the things you need to be worried about. These are the things you need to be, prepare for. Because when they take that money, you're never getting it back.
Yeah.
That $800,000, that's gone. That's gone. You're not getting it back. So, the unfortunate of them targeting the elderly, Oh, your son's. And here's the thing: is using AI these days. It's crazy how much. So the grandma scam used to be where I would call the victim and I'd say, we're holding. So there's two versions of it. One, we're holding so-and-so prisoner in the background. So they know that he's in Mexico. And then you have a woman's voice in the background. And we're holding a prisoner. Give us $20,000. Now you could literally, based on using 3 seconds of your voice, they find from a Facebook video, they can recreate, say, hey, Mom, I'm being held captive. Can you please
you
send
and
me?
I are fucked. Like there's just
Screwed.
Yeah, as far as the AI software, video and audio for both of our voices. Yeah.
There's a $25 million scam this one shocked me. So a guy gets called, I think in Beijing. I don't know where it was exactly. I think it was China. He gets called from the CFO from the company, says, hey, we need you on a Zoom call. And he gets on a Zoom call, puts it up on the screen, and he's talking to the entire board. And the CFO is at the head of the table. We need you to transfer $25 million. Okay, here you go. That entire room was AI. That voice was AI. Everything was AI. It was a $25 million heist.
It's only going to get better.
$25 million.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Only going to get better.
No, we're just at the beginning of it. I mean, it's just the expansion, the amount of like ChatGPT.
Yeah.
The new every version that comes out is just explosively bigger than the previous version. And it's shocking. I mean, it's really, really scary about the amount of progress that AI does. And if a room of 40 CPAs who are educated, smart individuals, only 2 or 3 of them know about the grandma scam.
Yeah.
That just, to me, scares me. And it's just like, they just live in their world. And people are almost kind of like, they don't want to know about the and that's one of the problems I see with Montana is, especially in Bozeman, is that Bozeman may have been we don't need to lock our front door. We're safe. We're fine here. Doesn't matter if your door is locked or anymore. Yeah, you've got criminal elements which are in Bozeman now and other cities here in Montana. Billings, Missoula, Helena,
Kalispell,
right, Kalispell.
Yep.
So yeah, you should be locking your door. But even if you don't lock your door, you got an internet. It comes in through your house, your Wi-Fi. People, people laugh about, TikTok, the Chinese can't get, who am I? Well, if they get access to your TikTok, they got access to your passwords. If they get access to your passwords, they access to your Wi-Fi. They got access to your Wi-Fi, they got access to everything in the house that you connect to that Wi-Fi.
And then there's people like my dad who have a cell phone, and he would scream his social security number at some person pretending to be an agent so fast, and here's my password, and save my money. And can you imagine my dad, Michael? He is susceptible, the most susceptible human being to a fucking scam. What do you mean? Here's my password. Here's my date of birth. Here's my code. And they'd just be like, oh, thanks, sir. All your problems solved.
Right.
Yeah. And then he'd come to me months later because he doesn't want to admit any of this shit to me. And then he would tell me about it.
Right.
I'm like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
Why'd you do that? I know I shouldn't have told you. You're just going to make fun of me. You were being a dumbass. Of course I'm going to make fun of you. Not that he's been scammed, but God damn it, he's susceptible. So you got a couple hour drive left. We've been at it for a few hours. What do you want to leave people with? Are you open to taking other clients, answering people's questions when it comes to security stuff? Yeah. No, absolutely. People can reach out for me on my website, BrunnerSierraGroup.com. I have my Substack of BrunnerSierraGroup.substack.com. I put out my newsletters like 1 or 2 a week. Yep. But I'm more than happy to reach out to me, and it doesn't matter where it is. I mean, I've had clients that are overseas in foreign countries, but I'm here to help out. And create the make people aware. Technically, I'm a PI here in the state of Montana, but I'm not doing PI work. So I have that on my website. But there's plenty of other people. I know a couple guys here in Kalispell that do work. Mm-hmm. So I'm more than happy to. I'm not doing the sit on a house, take photographs of a cheating husband. That.
No, done enough surveillance in my years. I'm just like, I'm good. Not that it's not important. Yeah. But there's another PI over there.
There's other service providers available.
They'll be fine. So I provide like I said, I just want to make people aware of it, and making sure that they're aware of it and of the crimes and the dangers that are out there.
Which they are. What do you want to leave people with? Closing it out. Final thoughts.
Listen, I'm super happy in my career, and like I said, I talk shit about DOJ, FBI, and the administration, and we're going into murky waters. We don't know where this is going to lead. I know that much. But people were tired of the last 4 years. I know that, I've been asked about like the new, if there's going to be a new director, who should it be? I've been asked about that and then saying, listen, I know that there are certain people that are good for the job. I know that there are certain people that I don't think are good for the job. And that's just me being from the street agent position, who I think would be a good fit for the director. But no matter what, at the end of the day, we will make it through these 4 years.
Yeah.
We'll make it through these next 8 years. We will survive. I know that you've talked about a civil war. I don't think we're going there. I don't think so either. I don't think it's possible, especially with what you were saying is, north, south, and, we're so.
How do we split? I think it honestly fell into a lot of the rhetoric that drove it in the direction that it ended up going as well. They chose to try to paint a picture that I think most people could see was objectively false. Yeah. And people are smarter than they are given credit for. You tell somebody who's intelligent enough to read the world for themselves that it's raining on them and they go outside every day and it's not raining, they stop fucking paying attention. Yeah.
And to all the people on the left and on the right who are screaming and we're talking about the extreme left and right. Yeah. They're crying or upset or this and forcing their, those are the left and the right, okay? They're not going to dominate the conversation. So let's just let them be. Yeah. Let them be crazy. We're not going to change their minds. And that's just is what it is.
It's actually the best advice is to let them be because nothing is going to change their mind.
Right. Nothing is going to change their mind. There's no amount of conversation. And that's what's great about this country. That's what I love this country. It's like, listen, you want to believe what you want to believe, go for it. But don't tell me you're wrong. Hey, listen, I don't believe in what you believe. Great.
Yeah.
Hey.
Have a great day.
Perfect. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
Hey, let's and I hate to say let's agree to disagree, but that's really what it is. And you know what? We've made it through previous times, hard times. This is going to be a tough time, some people think, but we're going to make it through. And Ellen leaving for England, good for you. If you want to do that, that's why it's a free country. I spent 29 years serving this country so people can say things that I disagree with. I may not like what they say or beliefs that they believe or religions or, sexuality or personality or, races. That's your opinions. And we're fine with that. And we're going to be fine. And we're going to make it through the next 4 years. And then we'll go through this all over again.
We're going to start hearing about the fucking 2028 election.
Oh, no, we already are.
By like late 2025.
I've already been seeing, so I follow on my Twitter, I follow both sides, both left and right. And I look at all the conversation and I'm already seeing certain members of the Democratic Party positioning, changing, and running for governorship like in New Jersey. Mikey Sherrill, a Naval Academy grad, running for governor of New Jersey. And I'm looking at her, I'm going, the next year is 2025 is the election for governor. I'm going, she's positioning herself, if I'm not wrong. She's positioning herself to put herself. I'm already seeing jockeying for position for 2028.
I just want a good 6 months off.
I just want no more text messages. No more fucking text messages.
It was amazing. The day after the election, my text message volume precipitously down.
Well, there was one race that constantly I was getting was the Arizona race for what her name was, Lake, I think was her name. So
is it Ricky Lake?
Ricky Lake or something like that, where she was. There was still a count going on for weeks afterwards. So I was still getting text messages. I'm like, I have nothing to do with Arizona. Why am I getting your text messages?
The amount of she-he messages that I got.
She-he and Tester. That's. I mean, people don't understand being not here in such a close race. Because it was such a close race, people from Montana just don't agree the amount of text message, the amount of mailers, the amount of signs.
There's another thing that went down. The amount of mail that I get is back at a normal level.
Yes.
It would be legitimately a quarter to a half inch of just garbage.
It was like 3 days. You just like,
yeah.
And I would never look at any of them.
Yeah.
I never look at any of them.
I don't know why they do that shit. Unless it's people like my dad who's like inventorying those things by fucking alphabetical order. Like, God damn.
But I'd like to know. I'd love to know. I talk to the people with marketing and going, this is going to target this age group. And I believe that from what I understand, is the targeting is the 60 and over because that was what they were used to.
That's what they're used to. And the text messaging is probably for a demographic more of our age and below. I'm sure it was all over social media, depending on what platform you were on. Yeah. I mean, whatever. Spend your money however you want to.
Yeah. Hey, listen, whatever makes you happy.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, thanks for making the call. We'll get you out of here.
Thank you.
Yep.